Yeah, I thought to myself, my daughter's going to see this one day. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I can't control her reaction to this. And I'm just going to have to tell her, honey, mommy needed to do it. Some things are just for me. Yes, you're in the shot. Yes, you're there. I guess I brought you there unwillingly. But at that point in time, you were just with me. And I was doing what I had to do.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Jess Weixler is an actor. She sat down with me in cyberspace to talk about the work. The very first actor I talked to on the show was the great Kevin Corrigan a couple years ago, and he likened the work of the actor to like building a house. And of course, when you build a house, the foundation is hugely important. Like you're building everything on top of the foundation, if we're going to keep this analogy going. And I keep asking every actor, what do you do first when you get a script to build this character? But I want to know, is it really important what you do first?
I love the analogy of a house. I think in order for me to, the way I approach it is, it's also the way I approach like therapy, I suppose, is I feel like I am a house. It helps me think of myself as a house sometimes. And there are rooms in my house that are not as lit as others, like parts of me that are a little dark, a little closed off, where the foundation is wobbly. And I would say when I read a script or a character, I'm first probably trying to find the rooms in my house that are lit up by what
that's
I'm reading,
yes.
by the journey that is happening for that character or for that story. Because then I can go, okay, these are the parts of me that get it.
Mm-hmm.
These are the rooms in my house, which I feel like I can see things in the room. I know why that person wants and needs what they want in this way. But then from there on, I think the work is to doing the digging down to be like, okay, so where is the foundation now? If these are the main rooms of the house that this character lives in, be it, it's getting so abstract. I want to make sure that
I think I know what you mean.
Right.
I think what you mean is like, if that's the room that lit up, but where does that electricity come from that's lighting that up way down?
Yeah. And how to basically keep it connected to my house the whole time. Because I don't actually believe in character work in the sense of like trying to mimic anything, or I think eventually you can mimic something, but I think that comes way later if it's something that requires that. But I feel like every character an actor plays, I want to know that it's actually a part of them, that they've maybe taken a room in their house and their own person that they don't usually light up that much, and they've figured out how to turn the lights on in that room.
Yes.
So for me, I feel like I'm when I'm looking at a script and I'm like, ooh, I kind of get it, but I know that that the house is bigger than that. And it's a matter of trying to find those little dark corners and go, okay, how would I fully relate to this? Me. And that kind of transforms mannerisms eventually, maybe.
Yes.
But I think they should come from it being really true to who you are, not like you pretending to be somebody else.
So this is not just to make the job easier because it's connected to you, but actually because it makes the work better if it's connected to you.
I think so. I also think when I'm watching something, first I have to say my acting coach, who I've like worked with for like, I don't know, 20 years now. I've got like my guy, he asks this like trick question to his students, like, when you watch something, do you feel like you want to relate to the actor or the character? And everybody says, oh, you want to see the character that they're playing. And he's like, no, you want that actor to have brought themselves to it.
That's interesting.
So much that they become the character, that it's the way that person, you would live in these circumstances, these fake imaginary circumstances.
Did a lot of this come about? I mean, you were talking about your great acting coach, but did some of this come about like in school? Like you went to Juilliard, right?
I did go to Juilliard. I was 17 when I started Juilliard. And in some ways I feel like I was too young and like all wrapped up in my own anxiety and need for approval that I almost couldn't hear what was happening until later. Maybe it started to sink in, and then I could apply. I've gone through that experience.
Was it overwhelming in many ways? That because I've heard that from actors, Juilliard in particular, a little overwhelming and not ready for it. I
think maybe just being, for me, maybe it's probably not true for everyone. For me, being like a little bit more mature may have helped me to break myself down and be more willing to do it in a way that wasn't so embarrassed, and trying to figure out how to be cool and make friends. All of that stuff that's happening right around 17, 18 is very hard, mixed with like real exploration of the self that happens in acting school. But I also think Juilliard, it is a very technical school. And I appreciate that when it comes to a lot of the work, especially like the classics and Shakespeare, and being able to take scripts apart. Because then you're not, acting really shouldn't be a therapy session. It's just, once you take it home or once you perform it, it becomes extremely intimate and personal. And I had a heart, and I think I separated those things for a while. I just approached it technically for a while, and then felt like, oh, maybe I'm doing a pretty good job sometimes, but I wasn't engaged in the same way. I wasn't probably letting other people change me. And then later in life, I realized that's really where the satisfaction comes, is letting go of that control of of everything, every idea you have about it.
So where were you in your life and career when you met this Joshua Leonard jokester? And who is, by the way, the second actor I ever interviewed on this show. Joshua Leonard, yes.
We met on the festival circuit because he was going around with Hump Day and I was going around with Teeth. And then we just kept showing up at the same festivals. And it was like, we should make a movie together. Yeah, you're great. He's a really smart dude. And I was like, but sure, how do we want to do this? And he said he had found a short story, and based on the lies premise of a guy that lies and says his baby dies in order to get out of work, and like how to build a story around that. And we sat down together on that one, like on this one, although we wrote more thoroughly together on this one. But on that one, we also sat down and figured out how the whole arc of the movie would need to be mapped out for there to be a journey between this couple. Because I would say both movies are a love story more than anything else. And they're both improved, where we set up what needs to happen in every scene, and then go for it a few times with 2 cameras on us. So you can sort of, you're cross covering, and you can use the little bits that never get repeated, because there's something to match it to on the other side. Yeah, and so we did The Lie like that, and I feel like you know more than maybe 2011 is when it came out. Yeah. Sundance 2011 was The Lie.
10 years ago.
10 years ago. And 10 years later, here we are making like a prequel.
That's right. That's right.
The couple had the baby in 2011 and got pregnant in 2021.
Right. Yeah, when he was on, he was talking about, in a way, the first draft kind of is the improv that you guys would do. And then the second draft is the editing. It's like an interesting way of looking at it. Like, in other words, when it's not written, meaning like this is the writing of this is kind of like written in the performance and that's the first draft. And then the second draft is the editing kind of. So was a fascinating.
I would actually say it's 3 drafts, because we do write out the scenes with a few lines in there, knowing kind of what we need to get through. We like imagine the scenes, but as if you're reading a short story. And then we act it, and we figure out, oh, this is kind of what comes out of us when we do it this way. And then we do a few variations on the theme of how that goes. Yeah, and then the editing.
Whenever I hear of a comedy improv movie, I always think this is a huge mountain to climb for me as a snotty audience member. It's like this.
I feel the same way, actually, even though I work this way. The thing that happens in the bad ones, and I think it's why they got the name Mumblecore.
Yes.
Is like people are just like talking about stuff, like shooting the shit. Everybody's trying to say something kind of clever, but act really naturalistic. And oftentimes in the attempt to be natural, you lose the problems. You make yourself so comfortable in the attempt to be natural that you don't have any task at hand anymore. You're not activated anymore. You're not trying anymore. And the thing that's interesting to watch are people like trying very hard. You just want to fight for people, which I think is why with comedy with improv comedy, I think it's a little different than like improv drama. And we tried to marry the 2 worlds, where there's enough grounded drama in there that you really believe these people, but it is extended to the degree that the stakes stay high for us.
Yes.
So it doesn't get like real casual. And then you're just like, I could also sit in a coffee house and watch this.
I
could watch this on my TV or in a coffee house, and nobody wants to watch that movie. Or I don't. You and I don't want to watch. That movie.
But it's also funny how real I need the situations to be for me to laugh. It's really interesting how real, even with ridiculous, almost absurd things like the bedroom scene. Like it still needs to be happening in reality for me to really laugh in the way I laughed. And I feel like you guys knew that. And a lot of times you see movies where they kind of get there without bowing to that master of reality, And I think Joshua called it this is a fascinating thing that I can't really fully understand, the phantom limb of naturalism.
Oh my God, what does that mean? He said that. The phantom limb of, I'm going to get him for this.
But I think I know what he means. Like when you keep doing something over and over again and you pull out things like I've heard you guys talk about like the end scene with the parents, like hours of an hour long take or something like that. And then you spend months just editing that. And then you pull out these things and create this phantom limb, meaning because it's not real, wasn't really there, or it's not really there anymore, but you create it. Like if you cut out off your arm, but you still feel like it's there. This is what I'm assuming he means.
I'm trying so hard. I think you're on the right track. It's funny because with some scenes, it really feels like it's a phantom limb. Like you don't know, there needs to be like an arm put on this body in order to make it complete. But you're like, what? I think it's there somewhere. Right.
But that's interesting because you almost don't need it to be a real arm. In other words, like I could laugh because all I need is the phantom limb. Like, or to have this almost thing happen, like the suspension of disbelief. It's almost like the suspension of naturalism. We're getting into the weeds here. But what you just said was brilliant because it's like you don't really need, it's fascinating how little I actually do need to be fooled into thinking, oh, that's a real moment and I can laugh. That's what I'm trying to say. And I feel like you guys hit this in scene after scene in a subtle way, where sometimes if it was a little more heavy-handed, I wouldn't laugh. It's weird.
Well, that's great. I do feel like it all came, like the seeds of everything came from a real place. I mean, I was in the middle of being pregnant for the first time. Josh had just had a kid. We had talked like in very real ways about, oh my God, like suddenly you're just going to pass on your own childhood traumas and habits to the next generation because it's just all living inside you. And They're just going to watch you and do versions of what you do as they learn how to be people.
Right.
And that's terrifying. And so the thought of like, okay, we've done all the thinking of this all the therapy on this that we can, now we need to like smack each other out of it. Like what's like one last final attempt to really like shake the other person out of their bad behavior.
Yeah.
And their bad habits. So, and all of those things were real fears, so like issues with power and codependence and aggression and, all of those things that it's like, okay, what could be actionable and like a face your fears activity to do as a couple and trying to find ones like pegging, which are safe enough just between the two of us, very bonding.
And explores a lot of different things.
It's definitely going to dig up some issues.
And the the one I relate to the most is wanting to be punched and wanting to punch, because knowing that I can relate to it also makes me feel like I'm absurd and makes me feel like I need some therapy myself. And so when you're laughing at stuff like this and it's touching weird things, it's like, this is amazing. I mean, like I really have to hand it to you guys for getting at this stuff like this and doing this with humor.
Thank you. I mean, I also love though that in that scene, the other guy is like, Fight Club. Are you Fight Clubbing?
You have to say that. You have to say that.
It's like, oh, I knew it sounded familiar. It is. They needed it in Fight Club too. No, it's a common human urge. So.
But how ridiculous was this for you to do this when you were this pregnant? I mean, when he came to you with this idea, and it was it just like, a guy just saying, we get to have a real belly. We don't have to have the prosthetic. Like, let's do it during this time. I mean,
it was crazy. And I think Josh was coming from a place of having been traveling with his family and really like full-time fathering for a little while. while his wife was on a shoot, and he was like, I just want to make a movie the way that I had the most fun working before in my life. And that was when we did The Lie, and working like that. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
How cool would it be if we did it again when you're actually this pregnant? Like, what can we come up with? And then and at first I was like, haha, I don't need to make a movie right now. But because my doctor was like, don't be too stressed out. My white blood cell count was apparently as high at 6 months as it should have been while giving birth. Like, my body was overreacting and overstressing. I was like, I don't know if it's a good idea to like add a crazy improv film shoot on top of it. And then it just seemed, I was like, I just don't see why not. I really want to. I think it would be fun. And I got so much better over the course of making the movie because my stress went down because I had an outlet for all of these ridiculous thoughts and feelings. And I was not sitting around wondering about the mysteries of parenthood.
Yeah.
I was just like playing with my friend, getting out in the world, exercising our demons.
Yeah.
In a, it was the best. And there's one point, women aren't really like throwing up in the 8th month of pregnancy, which is where I was at while we shot, but it was like late at night, and we just done the sequence of the fire and all that, and it was like a little too much smoke, and I was like, oh god, no, I don't feel good. And so I just like vomited, and it's like midnight, and then we had like a kissing scene in front of the fountain after that because it was all night shoot stuff, and it was totally fine. Like, all I have to say is it's like sometimes you just gotta throw up, get it out, and like keep going. And I felt so much better that I had something to do and something to focus on that felt like it was for me, because you're so focused on preparing the nest of your home and making plans. And it was like a nice, selfish thing to just go hang out with my friends and also, not fully lose the concept of parenthood.
Right. I mean, it was all worth it just for the shot of you wearing that dildo with your pregnant belly.
Yeah, I thought to myself, my daughter's going to see this one day. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I can't control her reaction to this. And I'm just going to have to tell her, honey, mommy needed to do it. Some things are just for me. Yes, you're in the shot. Yes, you're there. I guess I brought you there unwillingly. But at that point in time, you were just with me.
Right. She doesn't have
and
rights.
I was doing what I had to do.
She doesn't have rights yet. I mean, come on.
I really hope she's not mad. Because I think it's great. I had one of our cinematographers, Shaheen, he turned to us all shaking and he was like, it made me feel so much better because I was like, oh my God, this is really intense actually putting this on. I was like, I'm getting like a heat rash, like wearing a dildo under my pregnant belly. Like, I'm feeling more emotional about this than I thought I would.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, you look like an Indian goddess, like with many arms and all the sexual body parts and pregnant. And I was like,
yes.
Oh, that makes me feel so much better.
I found an interview 11 years ago when you guys had just done The Lie, and the interviewer was talking about the way you approach your career at that moment. Like, do you think about the trajectory of your career? And your answer was something like, it's more about you're following your inspiration, and you were hoping that would continue. And then you said, but one day I'm going to want to have a baby.
Hmm.
The implication was that, this kind of following inspiration may have to become more focused, I guess, one day or something like that when you have a baby. So it was interesting.
Or like more commercial jobs with having a
maybe,
baby.
maybe. But it's interesting. 10 years later, here I am talking to you. You just had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
You've been doing this job successfully for 10 years. But I wanted to just know, has your approach to this changed since you've become a mother? And even before that question, I guess I should ask, those 10 years that came after that interview, were you just following your inspiration and working with people that were inspiring you and not so worried about the big picture? And has that changed now that you have a baby and some kind of bigger picture needs to be thought about now because of that?
I think my original answer is still the best one, and I actually have to strive towards remembering that, because I mean, to just like follow your inspiration, follow your passion, listen to what you're attracted to, and then fight for what you're attracted to. I haven't come across that many times where I'm being offered like a ton. I haven't come across any time where I'm being offered a ton of money for something bad. So I actually haven't come up against that. I mean, I feel like even the TV work that I've done, which maybe like the Western I did or something, maybe wouldn't be called like revolutionary in terms of the kind of filmmaking or avant-garde, but it was a blast. It was still a world that I loved being in and something I loved doing. But as an actor, and I probably every actor relates to this unless they're huge, you also, it's like a two-way street. People have to be attracted to you. And so often the jobs where you're like, that job should be mine, you just don't get it. Like it goes to somebody else. So it always feels to me when I get to do something that I love, that it's because there was like a chemistry between us. Like, oh, I think I have some chemistry with this other artist, and our alchemy could do something really like fun and good, and we'll discover some stuff together and push each other. I'm sure if at this point some large network procedural tried to hire me, it'd be hard to turn it down. And maybe it would also be awesome. I mean, I also like a lot of network procedurals. Right. So it's, I think if you're bringing yourself to whatever it is, some actors that I love have gone on shows where I'm like, why are they doing that show? And then I watch them in the show and I'm like, you know what? They're actually doing great work.
Yes. Inside
of this medical drama.
Right.
Which could be considered like, you've seen this episode before, but I haven't seen this episode with this person, like living through it. And to me, that's still beautiful to watch. For me, as long as I always have some of these cool, funky indie projects here and there, that will like satisfy my itch for really thinking outside the box.
Jess Weixler, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you for doing one of these remote interviews. Really appreciate it.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.